Hey guys, this is Julian of Julian Gray Media. This video is going to be the first video of a series of videos on the new Ableton Live 10. So this video is targeted at all of you guys that bought Ableton Live 10 and want a little bit of insight in writing a song from start to finish in the new DAW. We're going to try to cover all the new features of Ableton Live 10, and unlike previous series on my channel, I'm going to be trying to use all stock plugins in this video to keep the cost down, because I know you guys just dropped a lot of money on that new DAW and you guys don't want to go out and buy plugins. Today we're going to start making a song in Ableton Live 10 without any VST plugins. We're going to use all stock stuff, and by the end of the series you should have a completed song. The genre we're going to go for is Melodic Techno, similar to Stephen Bodson or Oliver Winters, Deadmau5 even, or Test Pilot. So without any further ado, let's hop into Ableton Live 10 and get started. Awesome guys, so as you can see we are now in Ableton, and you may have noticed we are running Ableton Live 10 beta. That is because I'm pre-recording this before the official launch of Ableton Live 10. By the end of the series though, as we start to record videos after the series has began and the new DAW is out, I will have the final version, and there shouldn't be very many changes from this pre-release beta and the final version of Ableton here. So to start things off, let's go ahead and clear out these two audio channels here. I'm just going to start off with some drums. That's the easiest way to start a techno tune like this. And as I said before, we are going to use all stock options in Ableton here. So we're only going to draw from the drum channel here, or the drum folder I should say, within Ableton, and we're not going to use anything VST or plugin. So let's hop right in and see if we can find ourselves some drums. I usually like to start with the 808 kit. I really like the hi-hats and the kick drum from the 808 kit. Let's go ahead and use this. And the Ableton stock drums are actually very underrated. I actually really enjoy using some of the sounds even in music that I would write to put out. I actually use a lot of the stock 808 and 707 kit. So let's go ahead and start off with a kick drum here. Let me make sure my audio is down a little bit before I break my ears. And we'll go ahead and run with that kick. That's fine for right now. We can tweak as we go, and we'll tune it up to the key of the song once we actually get some melodies going. But let's start off with a 4 to the floor kick, and then we're going to do a clap. Let's enable the headphone button. I actually prefer the snare in this case. The clap is kind of aggressive. And then we'll go with some hi-hats. For this, I'm not going to do a standard one-off pattern like a normal house beat like this. I'm going to do a syncopated 16th note hi-hat grid like so. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to drag these over. We're going to hold the Alt key or the Option key on Mac, drag it over, and then I'm going to turn this one down. And as you can see, it's going to affect every single one in this row. Then we're going to drag it again with the Alt key or Option key on Mac, and then we're going to turn that down even more. And then we're going to highlight the second note so we can get this up, down, the lowest, and then back up a little bit. So we're going to highlight these with the Alt key, the Command key / Control key. Maybe it's the Shift key. It is the Shift key. We're going to highlight these second notes, and then we're going to Alt drag them over to the beginning again like that. So it's a shuffle. So we start with the highest note, we go down to the next lowest, and then we go to the lowest, then to there, and then to there. So let's give this a play. And then we're going to make this 4 bars long. As you can see right here in the note window here, you can adjust the length of the bar. People from Ableton 9 will know that, but just going over it for the newbies coming into Ableton here. This is the basically the clip window. As you can see, this is a clip, and this is, if we double click on that, this is the parameters of that clip. So all of these are MIDI notes. If we change the syncopation, we can do that here. And see, these are now locked into whatever syncopation you select down here. So it is now looping. As you can see, we can turn that off, and then if we play it one time, it'll play and then it will end. If we have loop on, it will play and then loop. But now that we've made it 4 bars long, it's going to play 4 bars of loop. Let's actually duplicate this 3 times so we can see that now. If we hit play on the clip, and we launch, as you can see, it now loops back to the beginning every 4 bars. And as you can see right here, it says 4, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4 beats in a single measure. If we go to a quarter note, you can see that these alternating gray areas are the measures, or I'm sorry, the beats in the measure. And because we are in 4/4 time, where a quarter note represents the beat and there's 4 beats in a measure, there is 4 quarter notes in each one of these measures, which is 4, 3, 2, 1. Those are each measure. And that is the standardized rhythm of house music. So next thing we're going to do is tune up that snare a little bit. I don't like how ringy it is, and it sounds very stock right now. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into the controls, and we're going to adjust some parameters here. Let's play around with it. I'm going to go ahead and try transposing it a little bit. And that's pretty cool. And then I actually want to go ahead and go into the envelope here so we can shape it just a little bit. Let's go ahead and remove some of this drag right here. We want the initial transient to hit hard and then kind of fade out just a little bit. So, because I want a very, very short clap or snare in this case. I'm going to even reduce the release time. And you can do all this right here as well. This is the actual shape of the volume of the snare. So as you can see, we start off here at what looks like full volume, and then we kind of cut down to half volume. And you can see the exact amounts right here, -20 decibels. So we're getting this very, very sharp curve and initial transient there. Then we have a, let's throw on an EQ. We can do that right now by dragging in an EQ8. And then I want to roll off the bottom end of that snare. So make sure when you're dragging this in, you don't want to drag it into this section here. You want to drag it in between this line and, or I'm sorry, in between this section and this section right here. So as you can see, this is the group, or this is the instrument, the drum rack itself, and this is the actual sample. So we want to affect only this sample. So we're going to drag this in right there. So it's within the drum rack, but it's only affecting the snare sample. If we switch drums now, you see that the EQ disappears. So that means it's only affecting that snare. You can also do this by dragging it directly onto the drum in question. I'm going to go ahead and Command Z that, which is undo. And if we wanted to, and this is something I wouldn't do right now, but if we wanted to apply an EQ to the full drum rack, we can drag it onto this section here. And as you can see, now this is affecting the entire drum rack. Just basic workflow tips in Ableton. So let's go ahead and delete that, and let's hear the snare now. We'll go ahead and turn up the high end a little bit and reduce the mids. And then we're going to add a little bit of syncopation here. So let's go ahead and add in some maybe 8th note or 16th note snares. Let's keep that at 16ths just for the smaller grid. And then we added a snare right there, and we can reduce the velocity of that snare maybe a little bit. Now, the velocity is how loud the snare is going to hit, or how hard it's going to hit. So that is when it's applied to a drum rack. If we apply it to an instrument like Contact or something like that, it affects other parameters as well. But for the sake of drums, this is essentially a gain knob or a volume knob. So I'm going to go ahead and add those little roll snares at the end there, the accent kind of ghost snares as you'd call them, and that kind of adds a little bit of groove to every other bar or every other downbeat. That's sounding kind of cool. Now we can add some other percussion. Let's see what else we got here. So we got this cool maraca sound. Maybe I'll go with one of those on every other beat like so. Or maybe we can even apply the same groove that we have on the hi-hat to that maraca as a different layer. Cool, I kind of like that. Let's go ahead and turn up the kick just a bit. And I actually like to separate my drums out into separate channels so that we can effectively control them a little bit more. You can do this in Ableton Live 10 with groups and stuff like that, but I actually prefer just to have them on my own channels. For whatever reason, I kind of got myself used to it. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that kick out, as you can see, onto a new device, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag the hi-hat out onto a new device. I think that was the one. That was not the one. I'm going to go ahead and drag out the, let's see, closed hi-hat, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag out the maracas, as we just established, and then we're going to go ahead and drag out the snare, so we have that on its own channel as well. So now we can name these accordingly. Snare, rename kick. I'm sorry, this one is nothing now because I removed everything, so we're gonna add, actually we'll keep that around just in case we want to use any of these other instruments, but for right now it's not doing anything. This is the kick drum. This is the hi-hat, and this will be a maraca. Cool. So then we can go ahead and group these. Now what I'm going to do is group these two together, the maracas and the hi-hat, because they're almost percussive, and the snare and the kick are more core instruments, which I'm going to process on their own. So I'm going to call these percussion. And then we're going to go ahead and collapse that, because now we know that this is that groove. To add a little bit of flavor to this, I'm going to go ahead and add a auto pan to the maracas. We can add it either here or here now because there's only one instrument on this entire channel, which is the maracas now. We're going to turn up the amount on that pan, and then we're going to adjust the rate, maybe make it a random rate so that we get a more humanized feel. And we don't want the amount too high to where it's going completely to each ear with a random rate. That would be very weird. We kind of just want to have a subtle amount and a decently fast rate so that it's going between the ears. Cool, and that creates a false sense of like stereo width. Let's go ahead and color these two. Let's make them like a pink or something like that, or we can differentiate them from the other two drums. And this sort of stuff seems really redundant right now, but it's very, very good for workflow. I'm going to keep the snare as it is, green. I'm going to color the kick drum blue maybe, so we know that that's different from the other drums. And this is unused, but we might use this later on with some other percussion. So I'm going to name this percussion. And then I'm going to go ahead and toss that in this group as well. We're going to make this red because we know it's not being used right now. So let's do that. Cool. So we now have a core set of drums. So we can actually start to lay this out in the arrangement and start writing some melodic content. Let's go ahead and copy these and paste them into the arrangement, like as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and do that. The alternative is recording it from this into the arrangement with the record button, but we're just going to do it manually as it is a little bit faster that way. We're going to hold the Alt key and click down on this arrow. That's going to open everything at one time. Very, very cool keyboard shortcut. Then we're going to highlight everything and then do Command J or Control J, which makes them into one clip. So now we have one gigantic, it looks like 8 bars, maybe 16 bar clip. And that is one full phrase. Cool. So we can do some work on this kick drum maybe. Let's apply an EQ to it. I'm going to go ahead and boost a little bit in the mids. Then maybe a little bit on the high end as well. And then turn up the volume coming out of the drum rack. Maybe we're going to apply it to a one-shot warp algorithm here sampler algorithm in the sampler, as you can see right here, instead of classic, because I want to adjust the fade out time. I want it to be a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this endpoint over and drag the fade out time just a little bit like that. Go ahead and turn that snare up as well. And let's hear this. Too much. Maybe turned the kick up just a little bit too much because now we're getting into the red zone. That's sounding pretty cool to me. The next thing we can do is actually add in a bass line or a sub bass just to kind of set the tone of the song going. I'm going to go ahead and go with something like a D minor or something along those lines. Right, we aren't using plugins. I'm going to go ahead and try out the new wavetable synth then and see what we can get out of this. So in order to MIDI control your channels now, you have to hit the automation arm, or I'm sorry, the record arm button and the MIDI keyboard button right there as well. You can do this with, I think it's Command M and Command A. Let me see. There is a button for, there's not a button for this, but there is a button for this, and it is the M button, right? So if I press M, as you can see, it toggles the MIDI keyboard on and off. But now we can play this note when the record arm is on and the MIDI is on, and we can actually work out a bass line here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this down a few octaves with the Z key. And then we're going to go on my MIDI keyboard here and find the note. I'm going to write this in F minor. Let's go ahead and run with that. And what I'm going to do is actually change this wave table to a saw wave, which is what I like to use for my subby sounds. Maybe we'll actually go with the D after all. Yeah, let's do a D minor, and then we'll do some work on this amplitude. As you can see right here, we're getting almost like a plucky pad sound. As you can see, it's fading up and then fading down and then kind of tailing off with that release. But I want the release to be 0 because we want to kind of fade out as soon as we release the key. And then we want the amplitude to be full, and then we want the attack time to be 0 so that it attacks at the exact same time, and it's going to be immediate as soon as you press the key. And we want it to be full volume the whole time of the clip playing, and we don't want it to taper off at the end to avoid overlap and masking. So we're going to press the D key now. And as you can see, we now have a nice clean saw wave. I'm going to go ahead and mess about with the filter here. We can expand this here. We're not going to use any of this stuff just yet, but let's go ahead and filter off the top of this this saw wave. Go ahead and turn that down even more. So now we have a very, very nice sub that we can use for our track. So I'm going to go ahead and drag out a region, and then I'm going to do Command Shift M or Control Shift M on PC, and that is going to create a MIDI clip. And I'm going to go ahead and find that D I was just playing. I believe it's a, there it is, the D1. Draw this out. Let me collapse this info right here. And then we have a D sub playing in the background. Let's go ahead and filter that just a little bit more. And then I'm going to play it. Maybe we can take this down an octave. Yeah, D is one of those notes that the sub actually works extremely well. I'm going to go ahead and sidechain this now, and to do so, what we're going to do is we're going to drag in a compressor onto the channel. We're going to expand it out, and then we're going to do a sidechain from the kick channel, and then we're going to turn the ratio all the way up. We're going to turn the attack all the way down. We're going to turn the threshold all the way down, or very close to. We're going to turn the EQ on and turn the frequency up. So basically what this is saying is whenever it hears a sound from the kick channel above 3.42 kilohertz, because it's this high pass, as you can see, it's above anything above 3.42 kilohertz, it's going to cut to this threshold, which is 0 or infinitely quiet threshold at a 1 or an infinity to 1 ratio, which is basically a limit, and it's going to do it immediately after it hears the sound. If you want to check out my full video on compression and how to use Ableton's compressor, make sure to check out the link in the upper right hand corner right now. It's one of my most popular videos, and I've been told that it's one of the best videos on compression on YouTube. So take that with a grain of salt, but go check it out. And now we have a side chain on that sub. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce that ratio just a bit so we don't get such a cut. That's sounding pretty cool. And I'm going to go ahead and apply, let's apply an EQ to this channel. We're going to low pass it even more here so we make sure that nothing is coming out. Let's give this a play. And we're going to go ahead and name this channel the sub bass, or maybe sub. So that is where I'm going to call it wraps for this video. In the next video, we're going to write some melodies, maybe work out a melody for that sub bass so we don't just have a drone. We'll work on some ambient sounds and maybe some plucky bass hits and stuff like that, and maybe some percussion as well. So this is the first episode. If you guys want to check out more videos on the channel, make sure to subscribe and make a video every Wednesday and Friday, or at least 2 videos a week, if not those 2 days. Make sure to give the video a like if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. Let me know why in the comments below, and make sure to tell me ideas for future videos in the comments below. I might feature your idea in a future video. I am Julian of Julian Gray Media, and until the next one, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
A drill.